y'all. Welcome to another live show today. It's July 18th, and let me make sure y'all can hear me. I think you should be able to hear me. Um, let me see. If you can hear me, type 1 in the comments. If you can see me, type 2. But I think y'all should be able to hear and see me. Wait, maybe you couldn't. Okay. Maybe you couldn't hear me. Let me say it again. If you can hear me, type 1 in the comments. And if you can see me, type 2. If you can hear me and see me, type 1 and 2. But hey, y'all, it's 2 minutes after 7. Y'all know I like to get started. We get started at 7. But I want to give everybody a chance to join. So we typically, I'll give everybody about 5 minutes or so to get on the call. And let's see. I don't see any. Okay, I see 1 and 2. And if there's a delay in my response to your comments, it's because there is genuinely a delay with them showing up on my end. So I see you, Shanae and Namrata, Brianne, Karen, Khalil. I see you guys. Hey, and welcome. Thank you for joining me again. Everybody, let me know where you are joining us from. Again, I'm in North Carolina for those of you who don't know. And I'm continuing with the ongoing list of questions that I had before. But if you have any new questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. And if you hear me talking to somebody on the side, it's my daughter. But hey, y'all, welcome. Let me know where you're joining me from. We have a couple more minutes and then I'll get started. I want to try to give everybody a chance before I hop on. And the first question is coming from Dr. Devang Shah. Not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but it's going to be coming from Dr. Devang Shah. And Shaniqua, I see you in Durham. Gavin, hey Gavin, how are you? Thank you for joining. Gavin actually sent me some specific podcast guest requests. So thank you, Gavin, for that. Anybody else, if there's somebody that you want to see me bring in on my podcast, definitely shoot me a message. Also, I plan on having some guests here live eventually. So if there's anybody in particular that you want me to bring in live, let me know too. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that is a clinical research professional or CRA specifically. But let's say you want to know more about branding, or you want to know more about how to tailor your resume, or you want to learn more about networking or interviewing, whatever the case may be, let me know. And we can investigate, see what kind of experts we can get to come on the show, and we can bring them in. Let's see who else. Karen from Raleigh. Hey, Karen, my client Karen. And I haven't forgot about you, Karen. I will respond to your message. I've just been super busy, so I'm going to get back to you. Hey, Kim. Ejo, not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but from Richmond, Texas. Hey, thank you for joining. Dustin, I see you from Minnesota. And Justice from Charlotte. Hey, Justice, you're not too far from me. And okay, a couple more seconds. We'll give everybody. And for those of you who are new, joining me for the first time, we do these lives every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, except for holidays. Other than that, I will be on and I answer any question that you have about, being a CRA. And you can put it in the comments of the actual live. You can put it in the comments of the event post, and you can DM me directly. Okay. So it's 6 minutes after. Let's go ahead and get started. And I see Angela former CRA CTM turn recruiting agency owner in Texas. Hey, Angela. Um, Welcome. And I want to say I got a message from you. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I did have Angela that reached out. I think it's you. I have you on my list too. I'm gonna get back with you. Babatunde from Chicago. Hi, welcome. Now, like I said, the first question came from Dr. Devong. And his question is, what is prerequisites for in-house CRA role? So, and I see Gavin, you're doing well. Of course, and I'm doing well too, Gavin. And so, for Dr. Devon, what's the prerequisite for the in-house CRA role? So, there isn't, I would say, an official prerequisite per se, but every company is different. So when you look at the job description, and I always go back to the job description intentionally, because the job description is your best friend that will tell you, it's your cheat sheet, it's your secret weapon. It will give you all the information, tell you everything that you need when it comes to what you should be putting on your resume to tailor your resume, what you should be saying in the interview during the phone screens. The job description is your best friend. So when you look at these job description for these in-house CRA roles, it will tell you what the requirements are for the role. Now, with that being said, don't feel like just because you don't meet the requirements 100% that you are not qualified. The JD is essentially their ideal candidate. So if they could get the exact specific, perfect candidate, that is who they're seeking. And sometimes there are those unicorns and they do meet the criteria 100%. But honestly, most of the time, they don't. So I would say if you're meeting about 70-75%, still go for it. Still see what you do actually meet. And if those, the criteria that you do actually meet are the stronger part of the criteria, let's say it's asking for 3 years of, I don't know, 3 years of TMF experience, for example, but you only have 2, or let's say it asks for 1 year, but you only have 3 months. But if it asks for like 7 years of some type of experience and you have none, that's beyond, that's a little bit out of your league. Not to say that miracles don't happen, and I do believe that anything is possible, but just to kind of give you an estimate, if a ballpark range of whether you should go ahead and shoot for it or not, I would say about 70-75%. And the next question, and Dr. Devon, if that didn't answer your question, let me know. But essentially refer to the job description and it will tell you what the requirements are for those in-house roles. Now, Isosa, she asked, how can a nurse write her transitioning resume? Now, that's actually a great question. And I will say that, so a lot of companies, number one, are looking for nurses. Let's go ahead and put that out there. And so if you're a nurse, you're already kind of ahead of the game. And because nursing is, it brings that medical aspect to the field, you have a lot of experience, skills that you can list on your resume that will be easily transferable skills. Oh, well, we like to think that they would easily show that they're transferable skills, but you still have to be aware that it is your job, it is the candidate's job and responsibility to make it very clear to these companies what those skills, those transferable skills are. Because, in my mind, it's clear, right? But sometimes I had to correct myself because sometimes it's still not clear, even when it is coming from a medical professional. But you have lots of opportunities. So if you're dealing with patients, that's one thing that you can put, showing that you've dealt with a lot of the different patient medical records. That's very important as a CRA. Most of the hospitals, doctors' offices nowadays, they use electronic medical records or EMR. So that's another important thing that most nurses anyways have experience with. So you can show that you have experience with EMR systems, some of the specific types of systems, entering data within the system. I don't know what type of nurse you are. It just says a nurse, but depending on what therapeutic area, if you, let's say, work specifically with urology or nephrology or something like that, you can list a therapeutic area. If you have experience leading meetings, giving presentations, working with different departments. You have to collaborate with a lot of different departments and moving pieces depending on what type of nurse you are. So that's another important aspect of being a CRA, being able to communicate with people on all different levels, right? Being able to communicate with the doctors and the patients and maybe some people in the lab and some people over in the pharmacy if you're a nurse within a hospital. So there's lots of different areas that you can potentially list on your resume to show and highlight all of the transferable skills that would make you an excellent CRA candidate. But I would have to know a little bit more about, you specifically, your area of nursing. And, I would have to know a little bit more about you to give you more advice than that. But there's definitely a lot of room to show and highlight those skills. And again, I will refer you back to the job description. Take the job description, really go through it and see what you can highlight, see what you can point out to that really does kind of, parallel to what you are currently doing as a nurse. And then, show that, indicate that on your resume. So the next question, and I see Dustin, you have a question. Gavin, you said you're joining us from Cincinnati. Thank you. Kim, I see your question. Simone, thank you, Simone. I'm so happy that you discovered my channel. You're over on YouTube. Join me. Join us also over on LinkedIn too. If you're not on LinkedIn, come on over on LinkedIn. That's definitely the place you want to be if you are looking to get into the clinical research space. So the next question that we have is from Dr. Saida. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But so Dr. Saida says, I'm looking for entry-level CRA position. I have completed Doctor of Pharmacy and I want to learn and gain experience in the field of clinical research. So that's a very open-ended question. And I would add that so number one, it's hard for me to know exactly how to help you guys when you don't ask specific questions. So please make your questions as specific as possible. That may mean you need to ask multiple questions, right? But that's fine. I want to be able to help you. So specific questions. Now, Dr. Saida, essentially you want to know how to gain experience in the field. So I'm not sure how many times you've joined or how many times you've watched me, but definitely take a look at my podcast and you can gain a lot of information from there. I have guests that talk about their CRA careers and how they got into the field. There's multiple different stories. So that will definitely give you many different ideas of how you can get started and gain experience. And then I also have some solo episodes as well, where I go into a little bit deeper detail. But number one, I would say, depending on, and I don't know where you're located or things like that, but internships, volunteer opportunities, they're not always the first go-to for people because they may be non-paid, right? But definitely be open to that if you're trying to get your foot in the door, and you don't have to do it forever. You can do it for 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. But it doesn't need to be, years and years type of thing. Just just to kind of get that basic foundation. The next thing is you had, I see your profile says Dr. Saida, so I'm assuming that you do have at least a bachelor's level degree. If not bachelor's level degree, I would recommend if you're trying to get to that CRA level. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily have it to get that first position in the field, because there are some positions as like a CTA, some study coordinator positions, some other assistant and specialist positions that will allow you to get in with a high school diploma or GED. So you can get started without one, but I still recommend acquiring one along the way. And then other ways that you can get in is starting and, looking at the site level. There's a lot of local sites. So the smaller sites, not the larger institutions that are more flexible in terms of bringing in new staff that doesn't necessarily have the experience and being willing and more open to train them. But there's still a lot of the CROs out there, some of the sponsor companies as well, that are also willing to bring in new talent that doesn't necessarily have the background or the experience just yet. So you really just got to kind of keep your eyes out open and really do your due diligence and networking. I tell you guys all the time, get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely the place to be if you want to network and expand your field, your possibilities, your range of opportunities. You want to be on LinkedIn because there's a lot of opportunities that aren't even posted, or they may just be difficult to find. So by being on network, by being on, these types of events, somebody might post or say something that resonates with you. You might meet some people that you can reach out to and then connect on a deeper level. You never know what's possible. So get online presence, get on LinkedIn, engage, join these types of events, join groups, speak up, comment, and eventually you'll get your shot, as long as you don't give up, of course. So the next question is from Avinash, and hopefully I got that name correct as well. But Avinash said that tomorrow morning my interview is for a CRA opportunity. So can you please help give me some interview questions and answers? So this again is a very open-ended question. And Simone, I see your question. Namrata, I see your question. Dr. Millicent, hi. Thank you for joining. So Avinash, that's a very, very, very open-ended question. There's so many interview questions out there. In fact, I have generated a list that I give to my clients of about 200 plus questions. And it's not to say that my questions are exclusive, right? My list of questions, you can pretty much Google, YouTube, common interview questions, and a list will pop up. But it's hard to kind of, cover something like that in this type of live Q&A session because there's so many. But just to give you, let's say, I'll give you 5 questions that typically, anyways, people seem to have a hard time with. And number 1, the tell me about yourself question, which doesn't necessarily have to be asked in that specific verbatim order, but, a question that implies that they want you to essentially give that elevator pitch, give that rundown, that summary of your career, what you've done, your experience, your background. And a lot of people tend to struggle on that question. I find that they either go too far and they find themselves talking for 10 or 15 minutes, or they don't go far enough, or they just venture off to the left on a tangent and they start talking about stuff that is, it's a part of their life, but it's definitely not relevant to the job and their career. So you have to remember that you are on an interview and these people are considering hiring you, bringing you in for a service that is specific to that job description. So just because you raise some money for your child's class for the St. Jude Foundation, or you, you created something on the side and you were able to help send your kids to an out of the country trip. That's great. It's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It's fabulous and it's amazing, but it is not relevant. And they don't want to know that. That's not what they're asking when they say, tell me about yourself. That's not what they're asking when they say, so what brings you here today? Share with me your story, your history, however they word it. They still mean tell me about yourself, specific to how you can help fill this role, how you can come in and be a CRA, be a study coordinator, be a CTA, whatever the role is, right? That's one. And then some of these questions, it's hit or miss. You might get the interviewer that asks some of the more outdated questions, you might not. But the questions about name 3 strengths or name 3 weaknesses, you never want to mention anything that is negative towards yourself or negative towards someone else. So even if they ask you about your previous employer, and it could have been the most awful experience, you could have the worst boss ever, but you don't want to say anything negative about the company, and likewise about yourself. We all have challenges, right? We all have flaws, we all have things that we can work on, but when they ask about 3 weaknesses, make sure that you choose things that, number 1, again, are relevant to the position, the job description. That will be your best friend. So things that are relevant. And then number 2, things that, yeah, they're somewhat of a weakness, but not showing you in a negative light, I should say. So things that you can polish up on, but not things that would be like, for example, a weakness that you definitely don't want to say is that you're very rebellious, right? Definitely don't mention that. Maybe you need to work on maybe you need to work on listening or communicating or being committed or focused or what have you. But don't say that you're very rebellious. You don't want to mention anything that is negative. And also, if you do mention things that, are some challenges or some weaknesses per se, always follow it up with something positive. Show how you're working to improve those things. Another question that I would say, an industry specific question that you might want to focus on, is what is an SAE? And what are the 5 criteria for, meeting to become, what are the 5 criteria that qualifies an event as an SAE or serious adverse event? So that's an industry specific question. Another one that I've heard several times is, tell me about, 1572. What is it? And what's the most important section of the 1572? Another one could be, what is an ICF? And can you please explain the consenting process, what that looks like? And let me see, what else would I say? The difference between SDV and SVR, you may get that question. And then you might also get a question asking you, so what are the 2 main or the 2 most important responsibilities of a CRA? And then back to some more general questions. You will get some of those behavioral questions, like, tell me about a time where you had to deal with a challenging coworker or a challenging manager. Tell me about a time where you made a mistake and what happened and how did you fix it? What are some other ones? Tell me about a time where you had competing priorities and, what did you do? And another thing that I will point out with the interview questions is that you don't want to allow them to back you into a corner. So definitely answer the question, be very specific, answer the question, but don't give them any more than they've requested. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying don't go into detail, because definitely if you have details, give as many details, relevant details as you can, but don't go off on a tangent. Don't go into left field, because then you might open up a can of worms that you cannot close, and they can back you in a corner and then start asking all these other questions about something that you mentioned, something that wasn't even on their radar, that you're not really prepared to answer. So don't try to, go above and beyond and impress and start talking about things that you aren't really ready to discuss, because it can end up backfiring. And lastly, I will say that sometimes they give you these either or questions, like, for example, do you prefer working with a team or do you prefer working alone, right? And my thing is, for all of my coaching clients, I always say, remember that both and is an option. A lot of times people think, and this is in life too, people give you some options and they're like either or. But my thing is, why can't it be both? Why can't I work well with a team and work well alone? The same thing for do you work well with oh, I see Cassidy. Great, Cassidy. I'm glad you're able to use this for some interviews tomorrow. And then I see someone else that says LinkedIn user. You're very welcome. And so back to what I was saying. So let's say they say, well, do you work Do you like to be micromanaged, or do you like a hands-off type of micromanager? Again, don't let them make you feel like you have to choose. You can say, well, you don't really have a preference, because guess what? You work well with both. You can work with a micromanager, and you can work with someone that's hands off, and you have to really kind of be resourceful and do things on your own. So when they do present you with those questions, those either or questions, remember that both is an option. And so Avinash, I hope that helps, but I will see what I can do for you guys. Maybe I can get, because the interview part is so hard. And I do have a podcast series coming up where I tackle some of these interview questions in more depth. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let you guys know when the series starts airing. But I'll see if I can also get together maybe some recruiters, some other CRAs, maybe some hiring managers, see if we can get together a group of people here on live and maybe bring them on and have them answer some of your questions directly too. So I'll work on that. And then Jacob, I see that Jacob says, within the last month, it was suggested to me to apply to the CRA position. I've spent the last month reworking my resume for this role, and I'm now finally applying. I was hoping I could get some advice on the interview process and if there's anything else I could do to better my chances. I currently have used LinkedIn as best that I know how with following companies and recruiters, but I'm not having the greatest success. So, Jacob, we just gave some interview tips, and I see that this is a reoccurring theme. So yes, I will work on getting together an interview panel for you guys. We can do that live. But so definitely, if you're listening to this, if you're just joining, Jacob, please go back and listen to the recording. I addressed those some interview questions, not all. It's hard, you guys. And I will add that some people come to me and they ask me just for interview help, right? And they're like, I don't want the whole coaching thing. I just want you to help me with interviews. And I always have to say no. I can send you to some people who do help with just interviews. So if that's something you're interested in, DM me and I can direct you to some other resources. I know some people that do, but it's not something that I typically focus on just because I feel like a lot of, y'all know I talk about mindset a lot, and it's really a huge part. Krista, I see your question. And yes, Alcoa, that's another question that could come up. But mindset is everything. So if you don't have that confidence going into an interview and you don't believe in yourself, then why would they believe in you? If you don't feel like they should hire you, why would they believe they should hire you? So I spend a lot of time really shifting my client's mindset and not just building that confidence, but really shifting from that job mindset into a career mindset, which I have a podcast episode coming out about that too. But you really got to take ownership of your career, y'all. And you really have to know and believe and feel like you truly are not just stepping into this role or job, but this is your career. And you have to treat your career like a business. So you are the CEO of your career, of yourself, of your business, and you have to operate as such. And with that being said, I like to get an extensive overview of everything that my clients have done. And we go through multiple sessions, hours and hours of me, because there's a lot of times where, we forget things that we've done, especially if you're not capturing them in real time. We forget things that we've done. And so I like to go through with y'all to make sure that, you haven't forgotten anything, or maybe you just didn't put it on there because you feel like it's not relevant. You feel like it's not important, but I know that it is, right? And that's why I like to go through and I ask every detail. They get frustrated with me. Some of them are upset by the end of the process, but no, it's important, y'all, because, all of these little things that you think are relevant, I know that it matters. And I know how to bring out the best in you and show, the story that best sells yourself, essentially. And sometimes that is, well, really most of the time, that's the biggest struggle that I see. And that's why I don't like to just do interview prep, because in all honesty, I feel like I would just be taking your money if I only, there's only so much you can do in an hour or two, but I'm spending hours and hours with my clients, and not just, going through their history and preparing them mentally and building their confidence. But then we also have mock interviews with actual CRA recruiters, and we do rounds and rounds of mock interviews, and then we do prep work with me and them, and I literally harass them with questions, y'all. By the end, they are sick and tired of me. But that's really the type of preparation that you have to have in order to, really be ready for these interviews and ready for anything that can come. Sometimes they're fairly simple, straightforward, and easy. Sometimes, depending on the interviewer, they're not. And so I want y'all to be prepared. I had a podcast guest that will be coming up later in the year, but she actually went through 10 rounds of interviews, y'all. 10 rounds of interviews, 5 back to back, 2 consecutive days. And a lot of people these days would not make it. I hear people complaining about 2 interviews. So that's why I say that, I don't like to do these one-off things. And that's why I say that it's challenging to just come on and give a few interview tips, because the interview is like, it's the holy grail of this whole process, and that it's so many different moving pieces. And there's the prep work, and then there's during the interview, and then there's the follow-up, and there's a lot of different moving pieces. So I'll see what I can cover, like I said, here on live, creating a panel, and then I have the podcast series coming out. So stay tuned for that. And Jacob, your other part of your question was, so is there anything else that you could do to better your chances? I would say get some help, whether that be, and I'm not necessarily saying get help with me, because there's so many resources out there beyond just me. So get some help, find a mentor, find a coach, a career coach. There's lots of other career coaches on YouTube where they have a lot of different interview tips and movies out there. Who else? What else? Let's see. And why am I blanking right now? There's one person that gives really good, and he was on my, why can't I think of his name right now? He was actually on my podcast, and where is his name? Mario D'Souza. I don't know how I forgot. I apologize, Mario, but check out Mario's YouTube channel. He gives some really great tips on his YouTube channel as well. And so does your fave CRA, Rashida Hall. She gives some tips as well. So check out their channels. And okay, I'm gonna keep going. We're past the 30-minute mark, but let's see how many more we can get through. So, and let's see. Romina. Romina. So because I am a medical technologist, she just moved to the Netherlands. She wants to become a CRA. So can I give some advice on where to start? Again, take a look at some of my other lives. I covered this in depth really in the first couple of lives that I've done. So take a look at those, and as well as the podcast. And I'll put that up again, confessionsofacra.com. If you check that out, you can find some, like I said, some different stories and different ways to get started. I want to be able to get through as many questions as I can. So I try not to, be redundant with the information that I provide. But if you have a more specific question, please, Romina, send that over to me. But take a look at, like I said, the older episodes, the podcast, and in terms of advice of where you can start, I would say look at the 3 roles, the 3 paths that I always recommend would be a CTA position, clinical trial assistant, or clinical trial associate. You might also see clinical trial specialist, study coordinator, or clinical research coordinator. That's the second position. And then if you have an opportunity, an in-house CRA role. And then there's some other roles out there as well. Not to say that those are the only 3 ways to get in, but there's lots of other roles like study startup position and regulatory positions and data entry positions as well. So that I would say would be a good place to start, Romina. And then Claudia says, I am a site program manager and have 20 years of oncology experience, looking to transition to a clinical study / trial manager. What are some things that I may focus on to highlight my extensive research experience. And Claudia, so again, and I know you're not, saying you want to be a CRA, right? And this is the CRA space, but to answer your question, go back to the JD, go to the job description, look at the job description for these CTM roles that you're seeking and see what requirements they have listed, see what responsibilities they have listed, see what qualifications they have listed, and based off of that, highlight everything that that applies to you, right? Highlight it, and then take that information and then apply it to your resume and clearly show how what you did as a site program manager corresponds and it's clearly transferable skills for that CTM role. So job description, I know I've said that several times and during this one session, but I'm serious, y'all. The job description is your cheat sheet. It's your best friend. And I see Namrata, yes, I can provide a list of these channels. I'll put that in the comments. I can definitely do that for you, Namrata. And then, yes, it was Mario De Souza. Yes, you spelled it perfectly. It's DE and then capital SOUZA. Yes, for the person that it says LinkedIn user. It's not giving me your name, but yes, that's the other one. But I'll still put their the links to their channels in the comments when we get done. And let's see. I think we have time at least for one more. So Sydney, she left a comment and then that she's interested in in-house CRA non-traveling position. And then she's trying to get her foot in the door in the clinical research door, like we all either are or were at some point. And then she also sent me a message, which I really appreciate, Sydney, for you sending me this message, and said that she's been trying to get into clinical research for about 8 years, y'all. So for those of y'all who are like, I've been looking for 1 month, chill out. And she says she has lab research experience. She has so many transferable skills, which I can imagine. And she's been applying for 3 months and haven't had much research, much results. But she does realize that there are differences. She hasn't had, let me say that again. I messed that all the way up. I've been applying for 3 months and I have not had much research. I do realize that there are differences. I've completed a GCP certification recently. Do you have any pointers for a person who is trying to break into the field? So, yes. Again, I would refer you back to the previous episodes. I'm not sure how many you've seen. Sydney, if when you started joining, but I will refer you to look at the previous 5 episodes, refer you to the podcast. That definitely has, like I mentioned before, it has several different stories that will be helpful. And then the transferable skills, even in the podcast episodes, I talk about, the guests talk about a lot of different transferable skills. And I see that you said you have lab experience. So just to give you an example, because I too came from a lab, I'm not exactly sure what kind of lab you came from. Let me see if I can hop over to your LinkedIn profile real quick and see what kind of lab you came from. I have lab experience too, and I see you have a PhD in, it looks like biology, medical lab tech. Okay. So, for example, in the lab, not sure if you're doing like bench science research, but that's what I did. So I'll stick with that example. So of course you're conducting experiments, right? And essentially clinical trials are experiments. They're human trial experiments, but they're still experiments. So that same core foundation of how experiments should be ran, where you have controls and you need a hypothesis and all these things, you need a protocol, a procedure that you can follow that's repeatable, right? You have to do all these things when it comes to conducting bench science research, whether that's on animal cell lines or in a test tube. And so all of that is very valuable transferable skills that can be applied when it comes to clinical research. The significance, the importance of making sure that the data integrity and quality is maintained so that the data can be properly analyzed and it isn't skewed and it isn't biased, and we know that we can trust it, right? We know that we can trust whatever summary, whatever conclusion that we come to. You know how to write reports, because in a lab you still have to write reports. They're a little bit different than clinical research reports that the monitors have to write, but still, you know, the data, the information has to be written in a scientific way and presented in a scientific manner. And it's kind of a similar process when it comes to clinical research. In the lab, there's GLP, so there's good laboratory practices. Clinical research has GCP, but still there's regulations and there's guidelines that have to be, you know, maintained and followed. So that's just to give you a few things, Sydney, of, you know, some things that you can keep in mind when it comes to transferable skills. And hopefully that gives you some examples of, you know, how you can take that lab experience and highlight some of the transferable things. And I think, let's see. And then one last question. I see we're at that 43-minute mark. Barira Malik. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. It's Barira, Barira. Your question was, how do you get into the in-house CRA position? So, and then Namrata, I see, I've been asked to mix of behavior, so even a small. Oh man, Namrata. I'm so yeah. Thank you for your feedback. And no worries, right? No worries. I always say that there's no such thing as lost, Namrata. So if you didn't get the job, or you missed, quote unquote, missed out on that opportunity, right? That's okay. Because guess what? There's a bigger and better one out there for you. So that works out perfectly fine. But Barira, so how do you get into an in-house CRA position? So the same way, essentially, that you get into the regular CRA position, unfortunately, and the same way that you get into the CTA and the study coordinator position, minus all the experience, you know, that little bit of experience that they like to see. Some people might argue and say it's not a little bit, right? That they like to see with CRAs, entry level CRAs, but it's all the same thing. You have to be able to, you know, articulate your brands and market yourself and sell yourself and network and put yourself out there. And a lot of people, when I tell them this, they're like, oh, like, you've missed it. I know that's not it. It's about who you know, right? Or it's about you need to get a certificate, or you need to get another degree, or you need to get this training and that training, and this whole long list of all these things that, in all honesty, y'all, they don't matter. And I can say it until I'm blue in the face, but I can't force you to take the information. I can't force you to apply it. I can't force you to receive and believe what I'm saying. But it really all is the same. It's just on different levels. And this information doesn't, you know, just apply to the CRA role, but really any role in general, but any role in in the clinical research space, it applies to. You have to be able to tell your story in a way that stands out. There's so many job applicants out there, y'all. And I know we all got told the story. Well, all you got to do is graduate and go to college, and you're straight, you're set. Newsflash, they lied to us, y'all. They lied. I was just as shocked as you were. Trust me, I was. If you listen to my podcast, you know how shocked I was. But it's more than that. Back in the day, yeah, that was the truth. But now, 2022, it is not. There's so much more required. It's almost like that's why I always coach my clients, and even you guys, I want you to do the same thing. You have to truly take control of your career, own it, and really carry yourself as a mini business owner. You have to recognize, realize, embrace that you are the CEO of yourself and your career. And in doing that, you have to articulate your brand. What's your vision? What's your mission? What's your goals? It's not, when I say brand, for those of you who might be misinterpreted, I'm not talking about some colors or a logo or anything like that. But you really need a plan, y'all, about what you want to, and not just in the CRA role, because a lot of people on here, you want to be a CRA, right? But beyond that, And some people they want to be CRAs their entire career, but do you want to stay being a W-2 CRA? Do you want to be 1099? Do you want to start consulting? There's still so many different pathways, even just staying in the CRA lane. And then once you branch out beyond that, the floodgates really open. So you need to be able to say, what are my philosophies? Where do I envision my career going? And in doing that, that's when you can really articulate that during the interview, because a lot of, some people are scared to kind of express their goals, and they don't want to, come off as too ambitious during the interview, but that's really what they want to see nowadays, because there's so many candidates that are neck and neck. So it's like, okay, well, show me how you stand out. Show me why I should pick you over this other person who has this same degree, who has this, same similar backgrounds as you. Show me what, is unique about you. And that's where branding and marketing and being able to sell yourself comes in at. And a lot of people don't like to look at themselves as a product, as a commodity, but we really are, y'all. Your services. That's why you went to school, believe it or not. That's why you've gotten these degrees and these certifications and all the things that you think you need. That's why. Otherwise, you're just collecting pieces of paper. But these things are supposed to represent a brand. They're supposed to represent a skill set that you bring to the table, a service that you can provide that these companies can then utilize and pay you for it. And that's what I mean when I say sell yourself. So don't take it as like this negative. I'm not selling myself. I'm not a product. But we really all, truly are, if you want a career, and you have to take it seriously. And I see your other question, Amrata. Yes, I'll put that on the list. And so back to the question, Barir, how do you get an in-house CRA position? You have to really start taking control and putting yourself out there. And networking is really key. I said it before, I'll say it again. You got to get on LinkedIn, and you have to make yourself visible. Don't hide your profile. Don't be scared to comment and engage and send out messages. Be clear in your messages now. Don't just say, hey, don't just say help. Don't just say, show me how to get in. You want to be very specific with your questions, because we get so many questions, and sometimes, you have to pick and choose who you're going to respond to. So when you ask a clear, specific question with intention, those are the questions that are more likely to get answered versus the help me, or I need some tips, or what can I do? So network, put yourself out there, join events. They're starting back up in-person events. There was a lot of just virtual events, but they're starting back up in-person events. For those of you who are in the RTP area, Cineos is doing a job fair type of event in person in August. So if you're interested in that, I can send you the details. And join events. What else can you do? There's LinkedIn events on here, meetups. You could join different meetup groups. There's lots of different ways, y'all, that you can network. So you really want to establish, create, build, nourish a strong network. Put yourself out there. Always be ready with an amazing resume, with a cover letter that you can easily, tweak if necessary. Be prepared to, interview at a moment's notice. I always tell my clients, if you stay ready, you won't have to get ready, right? So always be prepared, and don't give up. Don't give up. And you have to maintain a positive attitude. Energy, I'm very big on energy. And if you're negative and you're constantly saying nobody will give you a chance, it's too hard, you don't know what else to do, you don't know what you're doing wrong, you might as well give up. All that negative energy is operating at the lowest vibration possible, and it's not going to get you anywhere. You're only going to attract that same type of energy and that same type of response. But if you stay positive and you say, I know I'm going to get my shot, I just got to keep going. I know that, I might not know what to do now, but I'm going to figure this out. I know I'm going to run into the right person. I know I'm going to run into the right resource. That's the type of attitude that operates at a higher vibration, a higher frequency of energy. And that's the energy that you need, not just to land a CRA position, or a CTA position, or a study coordinator position, or get any position in the industry, right? That's the type of attitude and energy that you need for success in general. So as long as you stay positive, honestly, you can achieve anything that you want. And so I'm really coming up on an hour here. So I'll stop there. Next week, I will be continuing with, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but it's Khaloud. It's KholOud. And her question was, first time joining, I have a biology degree, trying to get into clinical research. What's the best first step? So we'll start there next week. And y'all, please keep sending your questions. Y'all are sending me so many great questions. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm gonna work on getting an interview panel for you guys. And if you have any recommendations in terms of guests, please DM me those directly. You can put them in the comments too, but I prefer direct DMs. If you have any other questions you want me to address here, put them in the comments, or you can DM me directly. For those of you who are interested in learning how you can work with me one-on-one, enrollment is still open for my one-on-one coaching program. So you can visit aspiringcra.com and schedule a call with me and we can talk more about it. And for those of you who just want more tips, and you can always join live here every Monday at 7 p.m., excluding holidays, of course. And put your questions in the comments, put your questions in the directly DM them to me, or you can put them in the event post comment. I'm getting tongue-tied here. And thank you so much for joining me. And I didn't forget, let me see, somebody else said something. You're welcome. And I see a couple other questions. I'll add those to the list, but I will add those links like I mentioned earlier. And then, I definitely, no, I already answered that. Never mind. So I will add those the links in the comments, and any other questions come up, like I said, you can still add them if you're watching the recording of this video. Still add them. You're welcome, Angela. Still add them if you're watching the recording, and you can DM me directly as well. But other than that, thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.